Picture this. You wake up tomorrow morning and your job no longer exists. Not because you got fired, not because your company went bankrupt, but because an artificial intelligence can now do it better, faster, and for basically free. Now multiply that by millions of people. Tens of millions. Maybe even hundreds of millions. If nobody has a job, nobody has money. And if nobody has money, who's going to buy all the stuff that companies are making? This isn't science fiction anymore. This is the conversation economists, tech leaders, and everyday people are having right now. And the answer? It might completely change how our entire economy works. Let's start with the elephant in the room. AI is getting scarily good at doing things we thought only humans could do. We're not just talking about robots building cars on assembly lines anymore. AI can write legal documents, diagnose diseases, create art, compose music, analyze financial markets, and even write code to build more AI. In fact, some estimates suggest that artificial intelligence could automate between 40 and 50% of all jobs within the next couple of decades. Think about that for a second. Half of all jobs. Gone. Now, you might be thinking, we've heard this before, right? People panicked when tractors replaced farm workers. They freaked out when factories automated production lines. They warned us about computers taking jobs in the 1980s and 1990s. And yet, here we are. We still have jobs. We still have an economy. Unemployment isn't at 50%. So what makes this time different? Here's the thing. Every previous technological revolution replaced muscle power with machine power. Tractors replaced physical labor. Computers replaced repetitive calculations. But AI is different. AI replaces brain power. It replaces the thinking, decision-making, creative problem-solving parts of work that we always thought were uniquely human. And it's doing it at a speed we've never seen before. Andrew Yang, the entrepreneur and former presidential candidate, has been sounding the alarm about this for years. He points out that when truck driving gets automated, we're not talking about replacing a few hundred workers. We're talking about 3.5 million truck drivers in the United States alone. Add taxi drivers, delivery drivers, and Uber drivers. And you're looking at one of the largest employment categories in the country potentially disappearing within a generation. Yang argues that this time really is different because the pace of change is exponential, not linear. But let's get to the really weird part, the paradox that breaks capitalism as we know it. Companies exist to make profit. To make profit, you need customers. Customers need money. Money comes from jobs. But if AI takes the jobs, where does the money come from? It's like a snake eating its own tail. Imagine Amazon perfects its automated warehouses and delivery drones. They fire 90% of their workforce. Great for Amazon's bottom line, right? Except now, those hundreds of thousands of former employees can't afford to buy anything from Amazon anymore. Multiply this across every industry. Grocery stores with no cashiers, restaurants with no servers, banks with no tellers, law firms with no paralegals, hospitals with no administrative staff. Sure, prices might go down because labor costs drop, but if nobody has an income, even cheap stuff is unaffordable. This is what economists call an aggregate demand crisis. The economy can produce tons of goods and services, but nobody can buy them. It's like showing up to a feast when you're starving, but you don't have a ticket to get in. So what's the solution? Well, there are a few big ideas floating around, and they all sound pretty radical. First up, Universal Basic Income, or UBI. This is the idea that every citizen gets a regular, unconditional cash payment from the government, regardless of whether they work or not. Andrew Yang built his entire presidential campaign around this concept, proposing a freedom dividend of $1,000 per month for every American adult. The logic is simple. If robots are doing all the work and creating all this wealth, that wealth needs to be redistributed so people can still participate in the economy. Alaska actually does a version of this already. Every resident gets an annual dividend from the state's oil revenues, usually between $1,000 and $2,000. It's not enough to live on, but it proves the concept works without society collapsing. Finland, Kenya, and several other countries have run UBI experiments with mixed but generally positive results. People don't stop working. They don't become lazy couch potatoes. Instead, they often use the financial stability to take risks, start businesses, go back to school, or do creative work that doesn't pay well but adds value to society. But UBI has critics. Where does the money come from? If we're giving everyone $1,000 a month, that's about $3 trillion a year in the United States alone. That's roughly 3/4 of the entire federal budget. Even with aggressive taxation on tech companies and automation, the math gets tricky. Plus, some economists worry that UBI could cause massive inflation. If everyone suddenly has an extra $1,000, won't landlords just raise rent by $1,000? Okay, so what's Plan B? Some experts propose something called a robot tax. This is exactly what it sounds like. If a company replaces a human worker with AI or a robot, they pay a tax equivalent to some portion of what they would have paid that human in wages and payroll taxes. Bill Gates, the Microsoft founder, has advocated for this approach. He argues that it would slow down automation just enough to give society time to adapt, while also creating a funding source for retraining programs and social services. The problem with a robot tax is defining what counts as a robot. Is it just a physical robot on a factory floor? What about AI software that does the work of 10 accountants? What about self-checkout machines at grocery stores? And if you tax automation too heavily, companies might just move to countries that don't have such taxes, taking the economic benefits with them. There's also a more optimistic scenario that some economists champion. They argue that AI won't actually destroy jobs. It will just transform them, like every previous technological revolution. Yes, some jobs will disappear, but new jobs we can't even imagine yet will be created. Who could have predicted that social media manager would be a career back in the year 2000? Or that people would make millions of dollars streaming themselves playing video games? Or that prompt engineering for AI would become a six-figure job? This camp, which includes people like economist David Autor from MIT, points out that AI is a tool, not a replacement. Doctors won't be replaced by AI, but doctors who use AI will replace doctors who don't. Lawyers won't disappear, but legal work will become more efficient and accessible. We'll need people to train AI, maintain AI systems, make ethical decisions about AI deployment, and do all the creative, emotional, and interpersonal work that AI struggles with. They have a point. Even the most advanced AI still can't do everything. It can't negotiate a complex business deal that requires reading emotional cues. It can't provide genuine empathy to a patient going through trauma. It can't come up with truly original creative ideas. Only remix existing ones. It can't make nuanced ethical judgments in gray area situations. And it definitely can't fix itself when it breaks down. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Even if new jobs are created, there's no guarantee they'll be created fast enough, or that the people losing their jobs can transition into them. A 50-year-old truck driver with a high school education isn't going to easily become an AI ethics consultant. The skills gap is real, and retraining takes time and money that many people don't have. Some futurists go even further. They imagine a post-work society where work itself becomes optional. If AI and automation create such abundance that the cost of goods and services approaches zero, maybe we don't need everyone to work. Maybe we can finally pursue the things that make us human. Art, philosophy, relationships, exploration, learning for the sake of learning. Sounds like a utopia, right? But humans are wired to find meaning in work. Study after study shows that unemployment, even when people have enough money to survive, leads to depression, loss of purpose, and social isolation. We define ourselves by what we do. Take that away, and many people struggle to find their identity. So even in a world where we don't need to work, we might need to redefine what work means. Maybe it becomes volunteering, creating art, teaching, caring for others, or contributing to our communities in non-monetized ways. Here's where it gets really interesting. The question isn't just, who will buy everything if AI takes our jobs? The question is, will we even need to buy everything? If AI can produce goods at near zero marginal cost, and renewable energy makes power essentially free, and 3D printing lets us manufacture things at home, maybe the entire concept of consumer capitalism becomes obsolete. Maybe we move toward a resource-based economy where abundance replaces scarcity as the defining feature of human life. Sound crazy? Companies like OpenAI, the organization behind ChatGPT, have openly discussed the possibility that their technology could create such transformative abundance that traditional economic models break down. Sam Altman, OpenAI's CEO, has invested heavily in nuclear fusion and universal basic income research, specifically. Because he believes we're heading toward a world where the old rules don't apply. So what's the bottom line? If AI takes all our jobs, who's going to buy everything? The honest answer is, we don't know yet. We're living through the question in real time. What we do know is that doing nothing isn't an option. The technology isn't going to slow down and wait for us to figure it out. Maybe the answer is universal basic income. Maybe it's a robot tax. Maybe it's a complete reimagining of work and value. Maybe it's all of the above. But one thing is certain. The relationship between work, money, and survival that has defined human civilization for thousands of years is about to change in ways we're only beginning to understand. And the decisions we make in the next few years will determine whether that change leads to a world of unprecedented freedom and abundance, or to massive inequality and social upheaval. The future is being written right now. And for once, we might actually have a say in how the story ends. Because if there's one thing AI can't do, it's decide what kind of world we want to live in. That's still up to us.